you can feel the change that's happening in music. Whether we want to call it jazz or not, that's another question. But I wanted to ask, do you guys agree with that? And can you share personal experiences about using rhythm as a way of notating the shift in music?
Just from my own point of view, I do agree with this idea that hearing the band from the drum, seat from the behind the drum kit is, I think, drummers are lucky we have the best seat in the theater, because I feel like the drum and the drum kit sort of creates the environment for most of the music, especially music that is based around rhythm or groove, or that's a big part of the music. I mean, especially if I think about jazz as dance music or social music, the drummer's a big part of that, because he's kind of getting everybody involved. I've always wondered why people always cheer for the drum solo. They can sit through a whole gig and the sax player plays, it's like, okay, that's nice. And then the guitarist plays, it's oh yeah. But when the drummer starts playing a solo, people get involved. There's a kind of a primal connection.
It's because your solos are really good.
Okay.
That's why.
We're spoiled.
That's thanks, Mark. That's actually well, thank you. But no, but I do find this. I mean, it can be the end of the night. People can be worn out from listening to music, and then they always give the drummer the solo at the end of the set too. So you play the drum solo, and people are brought in, and there's something very primal about that. I just think that people can relate to the idea of this, I guess, maybe second instrument. Maybe the voice being the first one, the drum being the second, where we take a tool and we strike this thing, we make the sound, and people react to it. But in terms of the role, I just think that, creating an environment from which other events can emerge. I think that's kind of the most important function of any drummer, I think. And in the jazz context, I feel like we have to react to a changing environment too,
A certain flexibility.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything Nate said, and for me, it's always been about the drums. Whoever's playing, having that power to create the texture, the vibe, the dynamic, the feel, and for me, I was always drawn towards the drummers that did it with a certain amount of proficiency that just drew me into their. I don't want to get into the technical versus non and all that stuff, because technique is just a means to an end to me. But as far as I'm concerned, it does allow for certain things to feel a certain way with a precision aspect. So if you're talking about, especially when you're talking about more contemporary musics, it takes a certain degree more of technical ability to pull some of that stuff off, to be able to provide a comfortable environment with a lot of stuff going on. And it's always been about the support factor for me. I think that's the number one job of the drummer, is to support what's going on musically. So that comes from understanding the history and a lot of styles to be able to support. Because in jazz, I mean, especially the stuff I play has always been, for the most part, coming from more of a fusion aspect of not necessarily just bebop jazz or a genre, a certain style. And so with the musics that I've played throughout my career, I have to know how to play Latin and funk and R&B and jazz and bebop and swing and big band, and so and there's differences with all those fields, but the bottom line, like Nate said, is to create an environment, a comfortable environment that provides a place for everybody else to have non-distracted creativity. And because as the drummer's role, like I said, is, and we've said, is not to distract. So, I think the bands that I've always been attracted to, the drummers have always not been playing a bunch of stuff all the time. They've supported and made it special, because I think it was B.B. King that said, if you're yelling to everybody all the time, it's, it's just going to be like this, so it's that contrast, of giving the difference between something and nothing, space and content, and like I said, understanding the feels of what's supposed to go on. So, when you're talking about the changing, aspect of feeling it change. Did you specifically ask that?
I did indeed, yeah.
I'm not so sure I'm the best one to answer that, because I tend to always hear the history where I know it's present, and I also know when it's not present, and I'm still attracted to the guys and the players and the music where the history is evident, and I'm talking about the history of jazz really, because I think that's kind of what's missing in a lot of the younger kids today is, the failure to study the triplet. So it's always been, for me, the attraction to what I know and to what I love, and what I grew up on, what I grew up listening to. So I couldn't tell you when, because for me it's, every time I heard something new along my path, it changed, but it was still the same. So I can't really talk about the stuff that's changing for the sake of changing when that element of foundational history is not there. It just doesn't turn me on as much.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about this until hearing you guys speak, because I do agree that the best thing we could do for the music is provide a strong foundation and make everybody comfortable and hopefully inspire the other guys and girls to play their best, and we get it back, and then the music hopefully reaches heights that it couldn't have otherwise. But when Ashely, in your question, it got me thinking about, okay, it wasn't until a guy like Max or maybe a guy like Elvin to open these new branches. So they're creating these new worlds, but they're doing it by supporting the music. It's not a look at me. It's like this is me, and it just so happened that it kicked open a new door. So I think when I think of my favorite musicians, it's always they're always supporting the music, and if it happens to include really beautiful individuality or unique vocabulary, then great. But I don't think it's in the order that we would hope, right? Supporting the music, taking inspiration from the other musicians that would feed their vocabulary and maybe send the music in new directions. So I would agree that oftentimes, I can't really think of a stylistic change that has happened where the role of the drums has stayed the same. So I think it's implied that there would always be, the drums would be an important element in the creation of something new. But I'd like to believe when done right, it's just, an organic thing that happens in pursuit of, just looking for the best music that they can make.